Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of April 27th, May the 3rd. We have a really powerful and active sky playing out all throughout the week. Before we take a closer look of what's about to happen next week, I would like to say a couple of words about the first half of the month of May because we have very important and really significant celestial movements taking place in the sky which are going to influence in a very significant way all of 2020. And what's so important that it's taking place in the first half of May? Well, we have a couple of different events. The most important and significant, which is going to be with us for a very long time, is definitely the nodal axis shifting from Cancer Capricorn into Gemini and Sagittarius. Now this takes place on the 5th of May and it's going to last until somewhere about in January 2022. So this is a really powerful and significant energy shift because the nodes of the moon represent our karmic path, especially collectively. So in the present moment, the North Node, representing where we're progressing, our karmic path, the path we need to take as a collective towards the future, towards evolution, towards having the opportunities to make significant progress, is in the sign of Cancer. This basically represented finding our connection with our ancestors, with the culture from where we belong to. For many people, it represented like an inner calling to revisit the places of their birth. So there were movements of mass migration back home all over the planet. This was perfectly valid even before the coronavirus and the lockdown began. So this took place all throughout the year 2019. A lot of people have been focusing on finding their places in the world. So for some people, this represented returning back home, returning back into their culture of origin, while for other people, it represented just leaving everything behind and trying to find a new place in the world for themselves, which resonates. Now, of course, this also had totally different kind of effects like ancestral healing, healing your relationship with your parents, especially with your mother figure. It represents forgiveness. It represents breaking free from your own past, especially those negative experiences which kept chaining us down, which took away our emotional liberty. For some people, it meant healing their old relationships. So either way, in the North Node in the sign of Cancer had much to do with where we belong, where we feel nurtured and comfortable in. May this be a place, may this be a relationship, may this have to do with family. And equally, the South Node in the sign of Capricorn, now that symbolism is pretty straightforward and it perfectly came out, it perfectly highlighted itself when the corona crisis began because it represents power, centralized power. How much power does the government and external reality have over us? The rules and regulations, the traditions, the legislation, the social rules, the social hierarchy, and of course, personally, it had so much to do with our careers and our soul paths. So for many people, this was like a big, irresistible inner awakening to just try their very best to perform their soul level duties, to enact whatever they came here to do, as in karmically, as in this incarnation, while for other people it was simply a massive career upgrade or abandoning an old career and searching for a new one. But at the same time, for many people, because we had not just the South Node in Capricorn, but also Saturn, Pluto, then Jupiter, then Mars, the Sun and Ceres, especially 12th of January, the conjunction between Pluto and Saturn, that very significant moment in history when it changed the whole world, so to speak, just like similarly to how it changed the world 500 years ago at the time of the Protestant movement. So the south node being in that part of the sky as well just represented massive karmic moments, because the south node is the past karma, and we have to overcome all the challenges and limitations with the wisdom and life experience we gained from the past. So this played out one way or another in all of our lives. Now, this is the present moment, how things were until now, but all of this changes in the 5th of May when the nodal axis moves into Gemini and Sagittarius. Now, this is important for a number of different things. On one hand, the nodes of the moon are actually exalted, extra powerful, extra influential in this part of the sky, because Gemini and Sagittarius naturally host the nodes of the moon. On the other hand, this further concentrates the energy, especially where we have to go, what we have to achieve, where the karmic forces are guiding us to go. And this is the North Node in Gemini, which is air element. It represents our intellect. It represents our communication, the practicality of our minds, our interhuman connections. So if the Cancer North Node represented us having to find our places in the world, having to find allies or people who we share the same emotional values with, even if they're not family, even if we're just talking about soul family, if that was the solution to all of our problems, well, now with the North Node in Gemini, the solutions are in our minds, are in our intellect, are in our learning capabilities, and ultimately technology, because Gemini rules the co-rules, better said, the internet. So the online world, social media, the age of information is a very, very significant tool to accomplish everything that we desire as a collective, but at the same time to find solutions to all our problems. And besides this, by the end of 2020, when Saturn is going to move permanently into the air sign of Aquarius, when Jupiter is going to move into the air sign of Aquarius, and of course on the 21st of December, the conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter takes place in 0 degrees of Aquarius, which is a very, very important pivotal point, because it opens up for us collectively a new era, a new worldview, a new paradigm, which has to do with the element of air, which has to do with the future, with our minds, with our intellect. So the North Node being in a fellow air sign of Gemini just makes this energy much more clear, much more straightforward. It empowers the element of air, and both Gemini and Aquarius are very non-conformistic signs. They are really individual, unique. They're very, very distinctive, and they value their distinctiveness, their uniqueness above everything else. They are the signs associated with freedom, for example, Gemini, equality and humanitarianism, Aquarius. So this puts the emphasis onto air, and air element is going to be very relevant for the next 100 years. But of course, this is the big picture. This is going to be happening later on, towards the end of 2020, and of course the beginning of 2021, then all throughout 2021, going into 2022. So why is it important in the present moment? Well, it is really important because the North Node moving into Gemini and the South Node moving into Sagittarius gives us a clue, it gives us hints, it gives us a valid chance for a foresight of how things are going to be looking and playing out in our lives all throughout 2021 and the rest of 2020. So this will mark the theme, the big karmic theme of our lives, whatever we are going to accomplish, and where Gemini and Sagittarius falls into your own personal chart can be a really good clue to what is going to be happening all throughout 2020 and 2021 in your personal life. Now, the South Node in Sagittarius is equally important because Sagittarius rules, for example, international travel, flight, air travel. So we can see a massive upgrade of legislation in that area of life, where the wisdom of the past and the past mistakes are going to be really, really relevant. The new legislation, the new changes definitely have to reflect, give a valid picture of how we apply all that wisdom. Now, Sagittarius has also much to do with life philosophies and religious ideologies, which can be rigid, which can be restrictive, and of course which can be manipulative. So that's why the emphasis is also going to be put on how philosophy, how the worldview, how our ideologies, how our dogmatic beliefs influence our lives. And for example, in 2003, when the South Node was also in this part of the sky, it changed reviews about religion, it changed air travel, it changed and boosted basically international travel. So just like the South Node authentically, validly revealed to us all the flaws and weaknesses of centralized power, as in Capricorn, now, just like in 2003, the South Node in Sagittarius is going to be revealing to us all the dark sides, the negativity, all of the past lessons about religion and religious fanaticism. So on one hand, when religious dogmas are limiting us, it can be condemned. And of course, all the past bad actions done in the name of religion or through religion, for example, pedophilia, which is something that runs in the Catholic Church and priesthood, is going to be revealed and challenged and maybe punished, because Sagittarius is the sign which rules legislation, the law, and justice. Now, the month of May is also very significant for totally different reasons, because this is the period when the big retrogrades are going to begin. Now, even before we get into May, we're already going to have Pluto retrograde. So Pluto will stand still in the sky around the 26th of April and then go retrograde the next day. But something equally as important is the Saturn retrograde, which begins on the 11th of May and ends on the 30th of September. Now, perhaps out of all the retrogrades, the Saturn retrograde is most significant because of our current situation and how its symbolism can affect our current situation. Now, as you know, all these restrictions, and especially restricting international travel, travel by plane, the flights, began exactly when Saturn moved into 0 degrees of the sign of Aquarius. So that enforced and created really, really strong and heavy limitations, which affected all our lives, all our freedoms, our interhuman connection, so to speak, because we had to take it on the internet, online platforms. Now, since Saturn retrograde begins on the 11th of May, this can represent that all those restrictions are going to be lifted or relaxed significantly, considerably. So that can be a moment when back to normality begins, when the restrictions are either relaxed or lifted. But of course, it's not going back to the old normality, it is just trying to create a new normality, because we'll have the physical freedom, so to speak, but that doesn't mean that all rules are going to be 100% relaxed, because we might have to wear a face mask, and there's so very many different ways it can play out. But of course, when a planet is going retrograde, its symbolism is greatly amplified and it turns inwards. So this represents that the energies, the collective energies, especially those playing out on the world stage, the karmic forces, are going to be slowing down a little bit to give us time to think, to reevaluate, to contemplate, and to find their inner expressions. Because when Saturn goes retrograde, Saturn retrograde represents that you're your own judge, you are the own boss of your being, you make up all your rules and regulations. And when Saturn retrograde begins, we have the tendency to refine them, to go within and see how our own rules, how our own regulations and routines and own way of judgment is affecting our lives. And if we find something that is unhealthy, something that is not serving our highest good, and of course we change it. And Saturn retrograde is going to affect all of our relationships, because we are going to be looking at everything with much more critical eyes. Because that Saturn retrograde grounds us into reality. It bursts our bubbles of naivety and illusions, personal illusions. So it's a really, really good energy for us personally. Just that globally, how it affects external reality, it might slow down a little bit, but this is a welcome opportunity, because we have to contemplate, we have to judge our own lives, we have to be the Saturn in our own lives. That is why the external rules and regulations and restrictions and challenges and temptations are much more relaxed, because we don't need them as much if we have them inside of us. This is the moment where even the negative expression of Saturn, for example, criticism, severe and harsh criticism, judgment, equity and dignity and pride may be taken into extremes. Now all of these have to do with Saturn retrograde, because that's how it plays out inside of us. So then for some people this may represent self-indulgence, while for other people it can represent extreme self-criticism. But regardless, we are the embodiments of Saturn while Saturn is retrograde. So what we do, how we do it, and which moral or earthly rules we respect or not respect are our own choices. But we have to live with the knowledge that when Saturn goes direct, well, we are going to be paying karmically for our actions, either positively or negatively, because every action has also a reaction. Every action, every seed of intent placed into the universe is going to be causing ripples, and those ripples will definitely be returning back to us. Now, if this wasn't enough, Jupiter retrograde is also going to happen on the 15th of May and last around until the 13th of September. So Jupiter retrograde is just as significant and important, because Jupiter is definitely the planet of inner truth, the planet of blessings, the planet of optimism and faith. So when its symbolism turns inwards, well, that represents being aligned that much more with the inner truth. It represents maybe a spiritual and a faith crisis, but that crisis is definitely serving our highest good, because it's refining, purifying whatever we believe in, our life philosophies, our highest principles. In other words, this is how we refine our inner truth. This is how we align with who we are deep inside of us, and that's how we affect external reality, because through inner changes we conjure up symbolically outer changes. Now Jupiter retrograde is much more important to whatever it's going to do the world stage, because it's still going to be conjunct Pluto retrograde, and Pluto and Jupiter retrograde dancing, both of them dancing together in the same place in the sky, is massive, because it will reveal everything. The two of them is a revelatory energy. It's like a surgeon which puts everything, every little piece of tissue under the microscope, and it delivers the authentic big picture. And since both of these planets are on the world stage, centralized power, the government, our social structures, the hierarchy, our leaders, our governors, well then everything is going to be revealed and exposed until September. So whatever truth is going to be reaching us, it's going to be really, really significant. Just that these planets are going to dance on and off with each other. So the truth is going to come to us gradually over the period until they go direct, as in September, October. This is also equally as significant for us personally because we can identify our own negative patterns. It's a really good energy for psychological healing, purges, surrender, just abandoning the past, abandoning our hurts, our wounds, identifying our self-defeating mechanisms, our self-defeating negative thoughts. We take power over what we express and project onto others. So these two retrogrades are not gonna be easy, but they're definitely going to be so powerful and important in our personal lives as well, because the truth is going to come to us, reach us from every single direction, both from within, but of course outside of us. And then later on in the summer, Saturn retrograde is going to leave Aquarius and re-enter Capricorn. And when a planet does this, when it retrogrades back, well, it's going to finish everything that it started when it was direct. So this can represent moments of massive karmic closures, massive completions, both for us personally, depending on where Capricorn is in your own chart, in your personal chart, but also on the world stage. So that will represent solutions. That will represent those who made mistakes, those who lied, those who deceived, those who had shadow agendas being brought to justice. Jupiter is the planet of justice, and Saturn the judge, so to speak. So many illicit or activities which were outside the law are definitely going to be challenged. This is a very powerful aspect for big organizations, big companies, multinational companies, like big chains of supermarkets, banking systems, and all of that, because it's definitely going to deconstruct them. For many, it's going to be the end of the road. They will have absolutely no chance to regenerate and recover, because the legislation is also changing. The morality and value systems are profoundly changing. So if they build themselves on like severe capitalistic principles, then chances are they're gonna fail, they're gonna be deconstructed, they're gonna have to readapt in very profound ways. And to add to all of this, Venus, which is a planet who has much to do with values, value systems, worth, is also going to go retrograde on the 13th of May until the 25th of June. So Venus retrograde is going to challenge how we feel about everything, how much we love it, how much support we want to give, how much emotional energy we're going to be investing. And since Venus squares Neptune, now this will severely challenge our value systems, because Venus is going to be in the dual sign of Gemini. So we are going to experience both sides of the spectrum, total duality, and we have to make a connection between that between the two sides, between that duality, so it doesn't challenge us anymore, so it doesn't upset us anymore, so there's not an inner war. So it's definitely harmony between the head and the heart, but until we reach that harmony, now it's gonna be moments of massive confusion, moments of feeling lost, moments when we just simply don't know what we love, or if we actually love anything in our, or anyone in our lives. And for those who are single, or those who are in an established bond, this is definitely going to be complicating their lives. And to add to this all of the other retrogrades, now it's not going to be an easy energy, but it's going to be so very constructive, so very productive. This is going to heal you and rebalance you for long term, for the years to come. Capricorn is permanence. Capricorn wants to do things for the very distant future, to make them long lasting, to make them stable, grounding, so they can withstand a lot of time. It wants total security. So that's why the inner work that we are going to be performing is going to be really, really significant. And that means that a lot of effort and a lot of energy has to be invested into this. So when Venus and all of the outer planets are retrograde, not all, Neptune is going to go retrograde much, much later. These outer planet retrogrades, along with Venus retrograde, is definitely a big celestial karmic invitation to go within and make order inside ourselves from every single perspective. May it be emotional, as in Venus in the sign of Gemini, squaring Neptune. May it be our own rules and regulations which govern our lives. Be our relation to centralized power, to the social structures, financial structures, everything external. May it be our one-on-one relationships, alliances, associates, friendships, and our place in society in general, because Aquarius, Saturn is retrograding out of Aquarius. And of course our future plans, what we desire to experience and live in the future, all of that is also Aquarius. And of course Jupiter and Pluto, our faith, our spirituality, our principles, our sense of justice, our sense of morality and equity. Everything is a big decluttering, a big tidying up inside of us and in our lives, because we need to, as I said before, establish a totally new normality in our lives, so that new normality can just manifest and reflect in external reality. And when the external realities of every single individual, like cells in the body making up a tissue and the tissue an organ, that's how we collectively enter into a new normality by 21st, starting better said, from 21st December 2020, when the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn takes place in 0 degrees of Aquarius. Now, to add to all of this, if all of this wasn't enough, on the 7th of May, we also have a very powerful and extremely mystical, supernatural, paranormal, super full moon in the sign of Scorpio. Now Scorpio rules secrets. May it be secrets on the world stage, may it be shadow agendas, conspiracies, whatever. May it be just simply personal secrets. Anything that we do not like to share. Shame, guilt, our hidden emotions, everything repressed. Just that the sign of Scorpio isn't as a subconscious energy as in Pisces, because even if things aren't that much clear to us, one way or another, it still at least touches our conscious. We can become aware of it if we dig deep, and digging deep is the symbolism of Scorpio, from no matter from what perspective we look at it. May it be digging deep in our subconscious, in our minds, in our souls. Maybe exposing secrets, investigation, detective work, criminal investigations, journalistic investigations, paleontology, archaeology. All of these have much to do with scorpionic energy, because we want to get to the truth of things. We want to get to the bottom of the mysteries, of the enigmas. So yes, this is definitely going to be influencing us in a very mystical and magical, paranormal way, but this perfectly represents the same thing in physical reality on the world stage, where certain people who committed horrible or heinous things in the recent past are definitely going to be brought to daylight. Big revelations, big discoveries, big secrets revealed have much to do with the Scorpio super full moon, sorry. So basically the light of the moon is going to be revealing everything to us. Especially, it's like a laser beam targeting secrets, enigmas, things that were hidden from us. Especially those things which were hidden with an intent, where the secrets and whatever was done in the shadows had a very powerful manipulatory purpose. So it's all the very important things that are gonna be revealed, what they have actually done, and their true intent and purpose. So this is going to be massive. And even personally, for us personally, as in Scorpio, it can reveal our bad tendencies, it can reveal our own toxicity, what we project onto others, our own aggression, our own intolerance, our own bad psychological patterns, betrayal, how we were betrayed, and when we were betrayed, how it affected us, what a bad and impactful imprint it left on us. So it's going to definitely be challenging our relationships, our finances, because Scorpio also rules the money and resources we share with others, our money making skill, so to speak. So it's going to reveal a lot of secrets. And of course, if all of this wasn't enough, all of these retrograde planets are going to be making connections with other planets. So it's gonna be really intense and it's gonna be really, really heavy. But the progress and the potential of progress is going to be amazing, and it's definitely going to be phenomenal. Something that we actually never experienced before in our lifetimes. And also, I think the best news is that Saturn retrograde has the potential to relax all these measures, all the restrictions. It can give us our freedom back, just that not in a way it used to be in the past. It's definitely not representing returning to the old normality, but rather adding the finishing touches to constructing a totally new normality, and we need to be free in order to do that. Now let's get to the energies of next week, the actual horoscope, the forecast for next week. And we start the week with Pluto retrograde, so the energies, the tension between the governors and those who are governed, the tension between centralized power and the collective is going to intensify. It's going to get really, really strong. This is where abuse of power, misuse of power, strengthening of the grip over power, which centralized power has, is going to become that much evident. It's going to be playing out in a very direct, in a very straightforward manner in our lives. And this definitely is going to cause a very, very, very strong reaction, especially that Mercury is going to be not only in the sign of Aries, but in an erratic degree, which means 29 degree of a sign when a planet's symbolism is greatly amplified and also its shadow expression is revealed. So Mercury and erratic in Aries, well, that represents angry words, that represents frustration, that represents primordial survival instincts, energies just lashing out. It's like an inner explosion of rage where we cannot contain it. We have to criticize, we have to challenge, we have to share our opinions without that self-discipline. So that moment when Mercury is going to be in an erratic degree of Aries can be quite an intense time. Both personally, because anger and frustration and dissatisfaction and not being able to contain our opinions, to bite our tongue, so to speak, can play out in every single area of our lives. We can criticize everyone and everything, regardless if it has to do with the coronavirus and the external turmoil or not. So chances are a lot of conflicts, a lot of tensions, a lot of angry words are going to be said right at the beginning of the week. But then fortunately, Mercury is going to be moving into the sign of Taurus, following the sun. So that is going to shift the energy. It's going to be shifting our attention, our focus onto our values, onto that area of life where Taurus falls into our own personal charts. But mainly it's going to be values, it's going to be money, it's going to be resources, the sharing of resources, the distribution of resources in a very personal way. So Mercury in the sign of Taurus is not the most comfortable energy because Mercury is very, very quick. It wants to do things as rapidly as possible, whereas Taurus is slow and traditional and it wants permanence. It doesn't change too much. It doesn't change in a very quick manner, only after the reasons why it has to change are very obvious and imminent. And Mercury in this part of the sky can represent the energy of overthinking, of excessive worry, making calculations where you just want the numbers to add up, where you make important decisions about your financial situation, about your financial future, your material future, your self-worth, all the small and big pleasures of life, in which degree you can have them in your life, and that also depends on your resources, so to speak. So Mercury is definitely going to force us to reevaluate and to think and to make plans regarding our finances and values, but at the same time, if we might have big blockages, big problems, big obstacles in this area of life, this can be a really good energy because it just activates our minds. It makes us get down to earth. It is a grounding energy where Mercury is not that unbound. It doesn't go in 10 million different directions, but rather it stays focused on the problem so it can find a solution. And of course, Mercury is also going to be meeting the Sun and then Uranus, which is a really empowering energy because it means the light of the intellect. It means the light of our minds. It means our mental abilities and the practicality of our mind being empowered so that we can think of solutions. And since Mercury is the planet of communication, also to find solutions through our interhuman connections by expressing our problems and asking for help. For example, the friends of a friend of a friend, anything that can draw in help into your life and give you the sharpness of your mind to identify the opportunities, to attract solutions. And especially when Mercury is going to be dancing with Uranus, its higher octave, now that is going to be the brilliance of the mind. That is definitely going to be epiphanies, moments of big, big revelation, where even scientific progress on the world stage, so practical solutions regarding our deconstruction of the value systems, practical solutions how to fix our finances, practical solutions and how to solve the economic crisis, which is already imminent, that Jupiter and Pluto retrograde in May are going to devastate it. They're going to deconstruct it. No stone is going to be left unturned, that's 100% sure. So this meeting of Mercury, Sun and Uranus in Taurus is going to be such a good energy for foresight, for plans, for solutions, to prepare for all of this, to accept the truth, and for our minds to work with that truth, so that truth doesn't scare us or intimidate us anymore, but we find the ambition, the willingness to just do whatever we have to in order to be okay in the future. And Mercury in Taurus is also karmic energy. In tarot, it is the Five of Coins, the card of poverty, so to speak. And it doesn't mean poverty in this case, but it rather means that we have to reevaluate our values. When something negative happens in our lives materially, now that always has some kind of psychological cause. So this is the big connection between our inner values and outer values, and especially when Mercury meets the Sun and Uranus, the three planets of prophecy dancing in this part of the sky, because the Sun can be seen as Apollo, the prophet, the source of prophecy, Mercury the divine messenger, Hermes, and Uranus, the god of the sky, the highest octave of our understanding of our intellect. When these three very powerful planets, which have to do with our foresight, with prophecy, as in the power of the mind to make certain scenarios or calculations for the future, Uranus, the planet of the future. So this is going to prepare us. This, whatever happens in your life around the middle and towards the end of next week, is going to be really powerful, and you have to witness, you have to observe everything with maximum awareness, because it is preparing you for the future, especially materially. Epiphanies, ideas, revelations, whatever is being revealed to you, whatever connections you can make mentally, however you build up like a Lego game your future plans one brick at a time, is going to be really significant, because you're empowered by Uranus. You're empowered by your foresight abilities. Your mind is empowered by divine intelligence. So around that time, pay close attention to whatever is being born from your mind and from your intellect. All your communications, maybe advices and suggestions other make to you, or basically your own way of, calculating the future, preparing for the future, because it can give you so many good ideas and hints, and the best idea, the big brainstorming regarding your financial situation or an area of life where Taurus falls for you personally. Now, of course, Mercury, as soon as it enters the sign of Taurus, is going to be squared by Saturn. So all our limitations, all the problems, especially the imminent global financial and economic collapse and crisis, is going to be a valid part of this picture. So you cannot ignore its presence. You are going to find solutions even to go around it. Even if in the present moment, and even if next week, we won't know for certain what we can expect for the future, but that is why the limitations are a motivating force, because they invite you to tap into your ingenuity. They invite you to get out of your comfort zone. They invite you to think with the mind of a visionary, and that is Uranus and also Aquarius. So even if the energies are uncomfortable, because the limitations are going to stress you, so you're gonna feel somewhat oppressed, but this is where the power lies, in your mind and in your mental sphere. And Venus in the sign of Gemini, of course she is squaring Neptune, so it's a very confusing energy emotionally, which has to do with all your relationships, who you love, what you love, the matters of the heart, so to speak. But at the same time, the square with Neptune is also very grounding energy if you use it that way. So your ideals, your naivety, your illusions, your misaligned beliefs regarding values, regarding practical future plans, Venus and Gemini, can also be revealed, and you have the chance to navigate through them, ground yourself into something totally else, not just your fantasies and dreams. Now, on the other hand, for those who are single, this can be quite a torturous energy, even before Venus goes retrograde, because it's going to make you feel so alone. It's going to make you feel, dream and wish about love, romance, that beautiful love story which you always dreamed of. And for those who are in an established bond, this can also make their relationship very dreamy, very surreal, you can have moments when your future together is in a big cloud of confusion, in a mist of unknowing, but at the same time, this can also act like a sinus. It can also act like an oscillation up and down, where sometimes you are so confident and faithful in the future of your relationship, and then after 5 minutes you're no longer certain. So one thing is for certain, that especially when Venus goes retrograde, this is going to terminate a lot of unhealthy or not so stable relationships, which aren't based on authentic feelings, which aren't based on true soul level love. But at the same time, this can unite destined lovers, fated lovers, because that square with Neptune can also infuse everything with the power of the spirit, with the power of the divine, where that square can be just a divine guidance which overrides your own illusions, your own mistakes, all those things that you aren't doing okay, that you aren't doing well in order to find love. So the divine can help you, but that help is can feel heavy, can feel the universe or the divine intelligence is playing games with you, playing tricks on you, sending you very unusual dreams, maybe romantic dreams, sending you signs, very confusing signs. But all you can do basically is to trust and just follow up on the guidance, because maybe it will lead you to a very beautiful relationship so that your dreams can be fulfilled. But since Venus is in the sign of Gemini and just before retrograde, do not have expectations. Don't make a mental image. Don't envisage your future lover. Just trust the unknown. Just trust the uncertainty. Just trust the divine. Because this is the big lesson here. Trust that Neptune. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the retrogrades, we have two separate videos about Pluto retrograde and Venus retrograde and what to expect. And also in the very close future, I'm going to be making a special video about the Saturn retrograde and about the Jupiter retrograde. So check them out if you'd like to learn more. I'm going to link the existing videos, the Pluto and Venus, the descriptions below, and of course in the future I'm going to be talking more about the shift of the nodal axis and what effect it can have on our lives. Well, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for everyone for your support, for your trust, for following me and listening to my work. Wish everyone a blessed and safe week. Thank you so much and bye for now.